Ladies and gentlemen, I have one goal for you by the end of this video. And I want to give you a 3-step process you can use to brainwash yourself to success in only 5 days. And it's going to destroy all negative thoughts in between you and where you want to go. Now, how do I know this? Because this is the same 3-step process I used to go from $80,000 in debt to 7 figures in 6 months. And this process didn't just work for me. It's worked for a variety of me and my clients. Now, let's get into the sauce. So the first thing we need to understand is how we can break through your invisible energetic ceiling, all right? And I'm gonna describe this in a few ways. So step 1, we have to unveil your invisible ceiling. Now, what is this invisible ceiling, right? What makes change so hard sometimes? Now, if you've ever seen me draw David R. Hawkins' map of consciousness, we're gonna look at this in another manner, all right? So over here, I want you to think about the calibration as a 0, and over here is where 700 is. It goes up to 1,000, but for the sake of the human experience, we're gonna start here. 200 calibration is going to be the most important level you need to break through, right? This is where your invisible ceiling is, and I'm going to show you why. Now, everything in here are negative states of consciousness. They're lower states of consciousness. Now, what are the traits of these lower states of consciousness? This is where you're going to have fear. This is where you're going to have anxiety. This is where you're going to have doubt. Now, what lies on the other side of this transformation, right? Grant, how is it possible that there's this invisible energetic ceiling to break through right here? Now, I'm going to give you insight into some traits on the other side. Right here, we have willingness. Up here, we have love, joy. But what is this 200 level of calibration that we need to break through? The most important level of consciousness you need to embody is courage. Now, this transcends all teachers and their teachings. Now, Dr. David R. Hawkins talks about courage because this is a signal energetically that we're willing to overcome the states we no longer want to experience. That regardless of what life throws our way, we're willing to tackle these challenges. We're willing to ride the highs just like we're willing to ride the lows. That's the secret. That's what courage is, right? It is going to be feeling the fear, is going to be feeling the anxiety, it is going to be feeling the doubt, and not letting those emotions decide our future. And I'm going to break that down for you because there's another part to part 1. But I needed to touch on courage because it's also something that Dr. David R. Hawkins and Joe Dispenza talk about, right? Dr. Joe Dispenza says, if you do not make a choice to change, you will never change. Now, the choice is not about hoping and expecting a perfect journey. The choice is about choosing to embark on a path of transformation because what they say is the road to heaven can feel like hell sometimes. But the reason the road to heaven can feel like hell sometimes, and we're gonna break this down right now, is because the old you is gonna fight back. So how do we shine a light on the old you that you want to get rid of, right? Now, this game of transformation and brainwashing yourself is really easy and people overcomplicate it. I'm going to give you one key. It is going to be a one process set of thoughts that you need to enact in everyday life. Now, before we get back into the video, I have a special offer for a select few of you. I am happy to announce our 5-day Ascension workshop and immersive experience. Now, this is for those of you who are tired of just consuming teachings and who are actually ready to transform. This is for those of you ready to step into a state of courage and embark on a journey within your own mind, body, and soul. Now, I want to be clear, enrollment closes 3/28 at midnight. So if you want to be a part of this, click the link in the bio and sign up for the 5-day Ascension immersive experience and workshop. say no to all things out of alignment. Now, Grant, how do I know when I'm in alignment? Right? Because the old you is going to fight back. Right? This is what Dispenza talks about. Right? Because your body is in charge. Because your body is the one that is taking on the role of the master. Right? It is embodying the traits of your mind. Your body's going to release chemicals that fight back. And because it releases chemicals that fight back, it is going to cause you to think more negative thoughts associated with that feeling, right? So if you're in the 0 to 200 range and you have fear and you have doubt and you have guilt, your body is used to that, right? It is programmed for that homeostasis. Your subconscious mind is programmed for that familiar experience. Now, we're going to get into the things that you need to say no to remain in alignment, but we need to highlight some important facts about the old you, because if you have awareness of the old you and its techniques and tactics that the ego is going to use to hold you back, then you're going to be able to overcome it, because awareness is observation, right? So our goal with the ego is to become an observer. Now, this is an important word, because to become an observer means that we can start to collapse and experience on the subatomic level. If I'm going to be artistic this morning, I want you to think of this as the subatomic level. This is going to be that 99.9% energy. Now, what's magical about this is that these subatomic particles exist as a wave and a particle simultaneously. The energetic realm is in and out of the material experience, right? This is the as above, so below concept. If we can come down to a moment of awareness in the present moment, and we can collapse into experience, and we can consciously choose that in this moment, then it is going to radiate like the butterfly effect, like waves in a ripple of an ocean. And you're going to cause an impact on the quantum subatomic level, right? Because the energetic realm is a wave of energy. It's a pool of energy. It's an ocean of consciousness. And when we place an intention, right, let's look at this as the electron cloud. The electron cloud is this 99.9% energy. So with the observer effect, whatever we choose to observe, right, wherever we place our time, energy, and attention is going to collapse a wave into a particle, which means we're going to create a material experience. Now, what does the ego do? If you do not act as the observer, you're going to be in a reactive state versus a responsive state. This is what reaction is, right? The ego is going to cause an impulse of the chemicals, which is going to lead to a thought, which is going to lead to an emotion, which is going to lead to a reaction, right? RA, reaction. Now, if we're an observer, we're going to observe this impulse. We're going to let go, and we're going to surrender whatever the immediate reaction is, right? Whatever we feel the impulse to do, we're going to just sit with it, and we're just going to observe it. Now, this is the act of letting go of the old you, because now you're an observer of your body and its tactics of the ego to keep you in this state of familiarity, right? And when you do this, you can start to take your power back. When you can start to take your power back, we're going to be calling on energy from anxieties of the future, from judgments of the past. And when we do this, we are starting to raise our energetic level, right? Our electromagnetic energy is going to start to charge to a higher frequency because we have more energy. When you have more energy, you are less matter. This is something I said in the live stream last night. The goal is to be less human and more being. Why is the goal to be less human and more being? Let's break that down right now. we're going to need to look at this from multiple perspectives, ladies and gentlemen. So we're bringing back the David R. Hawkins map. Now, at the highest frequency, this pure radiant energy is the Tao. It's the unified field, so I'm going to write unity. This is consciousness, right? Whatever you want to call it. Now, on the lowest level is really slow waves, right? This is the fear. But if we look at it in a physics perspective, very slow frequencies and waves are actually material, right? This is matter. And this matter is actually only 0.0001% of the experience. Because it's only 0.001% of the experience, if you were focused as an observer and you were placing your time, energy, and attention on this realm, right? The material realm, if you're focused on the money, if you're focused on the car, if you're focused on the lust, then you are not tapping into 99.9% of the energy. As you let go of the material realm and you let go of the judgments of the ego, you get to tap in to this 99.9% energy. This is how you go from less human, right? As humans, we are matter. And you become more being. Being, I want you to think of as your natural state, right? Being precedes knowing. And because the ego and the logical mind and the conscious mind has a need to know, it has a need to analyze, it has a need to judge, it wants to know how you're going to get there, right? It's a survival mechanism. Grant, you set this North Star, this is the goal, you want to manifest this, you want to start this business, but there's 101 things that can go wrong, dude. You could die in this process. That's a scarcity and fear mindset. The more we channel that, the more familiar experience we're going to have of that. But with this awareness and with this wisdom, if we can sit in a state of being, right? This is why we say be, do, have. Because if we can change who you are on an awareness level, on a quantum level, by expanding upon your concept of self, if you realize that you're just tapped into this field at all times, you're going to realize that you already embody the traits you were looking for. And because you embody the traits you're looking for, you can transcend these lower realms and step into a place of creation. Now, what is so powerful about this? Let's move on to step 2. So step 2 is going to be all about integrating our power. Right? How do we take our power back? Take power, which is going to be, how do we charge our energy, right? How do we get more energy to create? Now I'm going to draw a graph, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to think of you, and this is your timeline of life, right? This is going to be the past. This is going to be the future. Now, I'm going to break down an illusion, right? Right here, we're holding a certain frequency. And because we have certain judgments about the past, let's say we leave 20% of our energy over here by creating thoughts and emotions that judge a past. And let's say we're really worried and we're really fearful that we're not going to be able to create change and we're not going to be able to improve and we're not going to be able to better ourselves and manifest what we want. Then you're creating anxieties of the future. And this is where you place 40% of your energy. So you are down 60% of your energy, right? Because our energy is where we place our focus. So your battery is only at 4% and you're on a low charge. Your power is dispersed in realms of illusion, right? Because the secret is, all we have is the present moment. All we have is the quantum field. All we have is the Tao. All that is consciousness, right? And because this is the truth, we need to transcend the illusion. Now, when we transcend the illusion, things change. When you realize that you were the one placing your time, energy, and attention in those realms of illusion, you can call your power back to this moment. If you realize that everything is in the power of now, right? What Eckhart Tolle talks about, the power of now. You can use the present moment to consciously create. Now, to consciously create means we are going to consciously choose a reality we want to experience. Now, here's the secret. It's not about just hoping for a positive experience. It's actually about transmutating it, right? That is the magic of the human, right? That is why we have divine powers, because we can take the darkness and we could turn it into light through our perception, through what we choose to observe, right? You can let negative things define you. You can let that fear, guilt, and shame be the thing that you derive identity from. But if you expand your concept of self and you take your power back, you can be like, those were necessary things on my journey. Now, this is the secret. It's all about integrating the shadow, because there's something called spiritual bypassing. And spiritual bypassing is the idea that if you just try and jump a level of consciousness and spiritually bypass the work that you need to do in the lower levels, then it's going to be not sustainable success, right? This is why you might have fleeting moments of elevated states where you feel like you're powerful, right? You might be resonating at this frequency, right? You might be 150 right here. But if you try and jump up here to this 210 realm, where you have some courage and you have some willingness to change, but it's not sustainable, it's because you haven't integrated and taken your power back from the lower realms. Now, how do we take our power back from the lower realms? It's a simple process. We have to surrender. And when you surrender, saying, I'm not going to fight it, you let go of that bondage, those chains. So you let go of the chains of the lower realm. And when you let go of the chains of the lower realm, your energy is naturally going to start resonating at a new frequency, because you're saying, hey, I no longer choose to identify with this experience. I no longer choose to give my time, energy, and attention to it, right? Because what you resist persists. If you're resisting your shadow, so if you're resisting the negative experience you have, you're actually co-creating more of it. Because think about it, the universe doesn't respond to our English language, it responds to energy. And where we place our awareness is how we manifest, right? It's because we're observing an experience. Our perception is how we observe, our perception is how we create, our perspective is how we transmutate. Now, if I no longer resist this negative energy and I surrender it and I make peace with it, right? You have to forgive yourself. You have to forgive the version of you that experiences fear. You have to forgive the version of you that experiences doubt. And when you forgive that version of yourself, you have courage to realize you are no longer defined by that. And because you have courage, you're taking power back from a version of yourself you used to judge. And you're saying, hey, you are part of me now. That version of myself that was smoking weed, that was partying, that was eating like shit, I used to judge him. And that was what kept me stuck in place, because I was casting my shadow, right? I was casting my darkness from heaven. But as soon as I chose to integrate it and realize that all of my greatest wisdom and greatest failures all came from that darkness, it was a power, it was a superpower. You can take the bad things that happen to you and you can take your lower states and define certain revelations and wisdom from these experiences, right? How are you going to know what you want if you know what you do not want, right? You need these negative experiences because you're going to be like, hey, that's not me. I don't want to be the guy that's flexing my lifestyle. I don't want to be the guy that's trying to look cool and having a brand and playing in this illusion realm of competition. I learned that the hard way. But now it allows me to be here in front of you authentic because I made peace with those demons. When you make peace with those demons, you forgive them, which leads to courage. Now, when you take your power back, where does this leave us? This leaves us with step 3, right? This is how you start brainwashing yourself. Brainwashing yourself is transmutating. When you can transmutate, you become a co-creator, right? You begin to work with life, not resist it. Think about co-creation. You are not fully creating the experience. You are navigating things that are thrown your way. This is why you need to be in the present moment, because bad things will happen. Good things will happen. But we're the ones that create those concepts in this realm of duality. You just need to ride the waves, right? This is why it's important to understand the universal laws. Because one of the universal laws is the law of rhythm. And the law of rhythm is the idea that everything has waves, right? These waves crash out to shore, but they have to return back. It is the natural ebb and flow. And we do not need to attach to the highs. We do not need to attach to the lows. We just need to remain in a place of surrender, in a place of presence. Because when we're in a place of presence, we can be a co-creator, right? We can take these negative things that happen to us, and through perspective, right? Perspective is the lens through which you view the world, right? I want you to think of this as your filter of perspective. You can turn these negative things into positive things that serve you. And when you start to turn all these negative things that happen to a positive experience, you're co-creating a new unknown. This is what Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about. Now, the only thing you're going to need to do is surrender that version of you that fights back. Just be like, hey, I understand it can be scary, but this is what's best for us, right? Your highest self takes over. You're not making decisions based on your lowest self. Now, let's get into how we can place intentions into the quantum and start to manifest, right? How do we truly co-create an experience we want to have? Now, you're only going to be able to do this if you consciously engage in the first 2 steps, right? Because if you're allowing yourself to be defined and you're judging the old versions of yourself and you're playing in those lower realms of consciousness, then that's the experience you're going to attract, because that's your electromagnetic field, right? But in the act of transmutation, we can start to call upon certain experiences we want to have, right? And how do we do this? We need to make sure our thoughts and emotions start to work in coherence, right? Your thoughts are frequencies you send to the quantum, right? These are intentions. Your intentions and your goal from the experience you want to have, right? So if I have an intention to do well in business, to make more money, I'm going to have to realize that I'm going to have to change my frequency through being. And when you become someone new, you're going to do certain things, right? What you're doing is going to change because your frequency of being is changing. And the more consistently you embody this frequency of doing, you're going to be having the experience you want. All the people that have a lot of things do a lot. They provide a lot of value to the world. But it all starts with their internal state of awareness and their being, right? Less human, more being. Now, when you start to send these thoughts into the quantum, and when you're becoming aware of the fact that this is an experience you want to have, you're planting seeds. Now, this energetic field is a natural intelligence, right? It is a self-organizing power. It is a self-organizing power because it can lower its frequency into states of matter, right? This is what they say: when the higher energy descends into the physical plane. Just because you see matter doesn't mean that it's not this infinite potential, doesn't mean that it's not this consciousness. And because we know it's this consciousness, when we place thoughts and the quantum field starts to talk back, right? We have little serendipities. There's synchronicities, right? You're going to see some angel numbers. You're going to get a compliment from a stranger on the street. The universe is going to start giving things to you because you're placing this new intention. But because you're not judging the experience, or because you're not aligning with a certain expectation and you're in the present moment, right? You're surrendering, you're letting go. You're allowing yourself to resonate in a place of this present moment where the natural organizing power can do its thing. Because if this natural organizing power, this energetic field of intelligence, can lower itself into matter and create the physical experience, once you start to see the reality change, you're going to attract a certain emotion back to you. And it's going to be an elevated state of emotion because you're going to realize you're changing. And you're going to start to notice the magic that, hey, I am being a different person. And I'm being a different person because I'm doing new things. And because I'm doing new things, I'm having a new experience. This is very important to understand because it's not an ABC type of cause and effect situation, right? We think, hey, if I do these 5 things, then I'm going to manifest $1 million. If I do these 5 things, then I'm going to manifest $1 million. If you want to manifest $1 million, what are you going to do with those 5 things that don't go your way? Right? I set up this 2-night live event. I was going to go live, send out messages to hundreds, thousands of people, and I forgot to unlist the live, which means 80-90% of the people that would have wanted to come to the event didn't get a chance to because it wasn't showing up on social media. I have goals for myself. I have a direction I want to take myself. I have certain thoughts and intentions that I'm setting. But sometimes things don't go your way. And the funny thing is I didn't contract. I didn't go back into my old state of being. I didn't go back into my old state of fear and worry and doubt. I actually laughed. I was like, oh my God, like spirit is playful. It is childish in nature. It is like, Grant, it's not that deep. Don't worry. You have more blessings coming your way. I don't know why it happened or what it happened for, but it happened for a reason. And that's my mindset. That's my perspective. That's me transmutating a negative experience into a positive experience, right? I'm being a new person. I'm not defining myself based on the losses. I'm realizing that they're serving me in some way, right? Maybe because 80% of the people missed the first night, they're surely going to show up to the second night, which allows me to do new things because I'm not defined by the familiar experience. I'm not defined by that fearful version of Grant. And because I'm doing new things, I get to have new things. I get to have a community of hundreds of people that will show up live, and it becomes a Socratic seminar, right? My goal is to start a new age school of Athens. I want this to be that experience for people. And that's the intention I'm setting. That's what I'm choosing to give. Now, I want you to understand that. This is the main thing people mess up on when they try and create. All right, we know energy cannot be created nor destroyed. And because energy cannot be created nor destroyed, it's going through an infinite cycle of recycling. This infinite cycle of recycling is how energy goes, right? We have the negative poles, we have the positive poles, and the energy is always recycling, right? And because this energy is always recycling, energy goes 2 ways, right? Manifestation, you want to receive something. But if all you're focused on is receiving, if all you're focusing on is your manifestation, you're cutting off half the spiral of energy. The other half is giving. This is where I want you to start. What can you give to the universe, right? Can you give the universe new thoughts? Right? Can you place new thoughts in your life and start to give that experience that you want to have? Can you start to do acts of service for people and not expect anything in return? Right? This infinite source of energy is given at all times. It is always replenished. It is pure abundance. And because it's pure abundance, it knows that it will never be scarce. That scarcity is an illusion. The more you give in the form of thoughts, services, experiences to others, the more you're going to channel this back into your life. It's literally the energetic cycle, right? So you can give yourself an extra 5 minutes of meditation. You can give yourself an extra 5 reasons to be grateful. But this is the thing, because you have self-respect for yourself and because you're demanding a new experience, you're going to channel that. Because the only way the universe is going to respect you is when you respect yourself, because you are not separate. That's why I want to show you guys the power of the infinite pool, because that's what you come from. So we are actually not separate. That's an illusion of the ego. And when you start to treat yourself like the divine source of energy you are, you're going to demand this experience. And because you demand this experience, the energy is going to come back your way. And because it's the frequency you channel, you're going to receive more of this into your life. But it starts with the giving. You think you can just take? That's not how the universe works. That's not how the higher states of energy work. This is a state of power. A state of power is saying, I am being this regardless. I'm in a state of love. I'm in a state of gratitude. This is what I naturally resonate at. The lower frequencies just want to receive. They're fearful. They're scarce. They're saying, I need this to validate this experience because I don't understand my concept of self. Right? So start by giving. Right? You can transmutate the lower states and become a co-creator by giving yourself new thoughts, transmutating negative things into positive things. Giving yourself new forms of service, right? Going to the gym, eating healthy, starting that business, even though it'll be hard, which will lead to more experiences that you'll receive from the universe. Now, this is the 3-step process you can use to brainwash yourself to success in 5 days and destroy negative thoughts. If you like this video, drop a subscribe, drop a like, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.